a creepy horror anthology that's as much about a house as it is about a witch. Let's talk about Beezel. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watch Your Pass. I'm here to talk about Beezel, which comes to limited theaters on September 20th, 2024, and digital on September 24th, 2024. It is a new kind of like horror anthology-ish kind of film that has three distinct stories about this one house and this one occupant that may be up to no good. My hot take is I definitely think you should watch it. I liked it a lot. It was a well-done indie horror film that has a great creepy vibe, a wonderful aesthetic, a nice slow build to it, and a tense setup that will just have you holding your breath. I really enjoyed it. I was kind of surprised by this movie, so I definitely think you should check it out. And I'm going to tell you a little about the film, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap and the ending. So if you don't know what happens in this movie, I would turn off when I get to the ending. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So in Beezel, you have the story of essentially this house and three strange incidents that happen in it over the course of decades. The film starts with the first incident and then continues through different eras. What happens and why are these horrible things happening? Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, I love the start. I thought it was a fantastic start. It has a really nice like home movie look that really kind of makes you think that something bad is going to happen. I don't know what it is about like seeing home movies in a horror movie, but you know that something bad is going to happen and something does. Second thing I love the performances. Some really great performances throughout, but I especially loved the character in the first story. He was wonderful. He was like so nice and so unsettling. It was kind of like the perfect way to like open up this film and start this film. The third thing I loved, it's creepy. It's just really creepy. It has a really good vibe and theme. Like the whole film just kind of like oozes like something bad is going to happen throughout. Just the way that they explore different parts of this house and the way that they kind of like have things happen. It is just a really great overall atmosphere. The fourth thing I love the music. Again, like it just contributes to the overall theme, the overall vibe. It is just creepy music that will keep you on edge. It has kind of like unsettling strings that let you know that something strange is going to happen or something, unnatural is happening. And the last thing I love the tension. It has just a lot of very tense moments as you're waiting for something to happen. It is a good, you can tell it's a good horror movie when you are actually like stressed and like waiting for something bad to happen and you know something bad's going to happen and you just kind of like are excited but also worried about it. This film just has that in spades. So all that being said, things I didn't love as much. There's really only one thing. I'll just call it the quick escalation. I think because it's like three short stories, some of them escalate very quickly. It would have been nice to have some more time. Now I understand why they couldn't. It's three stories, so you've only got so much time. The movie is about an hour and 20 minutes. So I think they could have added a little bit more time to maybe have, especially the middle story. The middle story feels like it could use a little bit more escalation. It would have been nice to kind of like flesh out that middle story because that one something seems to happen very, very quickly, and it feels like you could have spaced it out a little bit more. But overall, that was the only minor thing. I really like this movie. I thought it was really well done. I thought it was a nice, like, small budget indie horror film. So definitely check out Beezel when it comes to select theaters on September 20th, 2024, and digital on September 24th, 2024. And I'm going to really quickly go into a recap right now. So if you don't know what happened in this movie, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So like I said, the film starts with like home movies of this kid and this family in this house. It's a really great way to like start this off and keep this creepy vibe. The first story is set in May 1966. There's a kid playing in the house and he hears a voice. And it's coming from like the vanity in the bathroom. And so he opens it up and there's this trap door in the bathroom. I don't know why there's a trap door. It seems like a terrible place to put a trap door, but he opens that up and inside is this woman. It's I guess his mom. It looks like a possessed woman. It looks like, an exorcist version of the woman, but it's his mom. And she says like, he doesn't question why she's in the basement. She just says, I'm hungry. Can you get me a snack? And so he goes and grabs her something. And then she, says, can you get me some more? And when he reaches in to give him the second one, like all of a sudden he gets pulled in and it seems like something takes a bite out of him. And that is how we first get introduced to this. The next story is in 1988. That's kind of like a little intro story. It doesn't, it's related to this first main story. The next one is 1988. You got some man named Apollo who's coming to this house for a project and he meets the owner of the house, this person named Harold J. Weems, who is apparently he's been the owner since that kid incident happened. He is the kid's father. His wife was found dead. His kid was found dead. He was never, convicted of it, but everyone in the neighborhood suspects it. So Harold is organizing this video shoot to try to like clear the record. He wants to make essentially a documentary to tell people what happened. And so he brought Apollo in here to come help him make this documentary. Now, Harold is wonderful. He is like super nice, but you can tell something is off with him. He's got this like great nice fatherly vibe, but also like a little bit of creep in him. It is just a really, really great performance. And so while they're talking about this project, they start filming, but it takes a long time to get started. And so eventually, Harold Apollo's like, "Oh, I gotta get going. It's like late." And Harold's like, "Hey, look, now why don't you spend the night? We'll finish up this project, and I'll pay you overtime." And Apollo agrees. He shouldn't have agreed. He should have just left, but he agrees. And so they keep working. And later that night, Harold shows Apollo some weird footage, and when he's playing it back, you see it is like the footage of his wife when he found her. He tells Apollo that the police never got this footage, and so it's like him recording him finding his wife and what he like said when he found her, and then Harold says something along the lines of, "It's fascinating how she feeds," which is a creepy line, and it seems to refer to whatever it is that was like in the house that ate his son and apparently also killed his wife. Now, when Apollo sees this, he starts feeling sick, and you're like, "What's going on? Like, is he possessed?" He passes out, and we find him next tied up in the basement. So Harold drugged Apollo, brought him down there, and now he's recording something else. He gets into the camera and says, "My name is Harold J. Weems, and I was chosen by her. If you are watching this, you are my successor. She calls herself Beezel, and she has lived here long before me." And so we find out that whatever this thing is, whatever this thing that ate his son is, whatever this thing that killed his wife is, he has been serving her for a while. And it seems like he is now serving up Apollo as a like new sacrifice or new something for her. And he's recording this, I guess, to tell future people what to do. So during this time, Apollo was able to like free one of his hands and grab a screwdriver. So after Harold records a little bit, after he tells a little bit more about the process, he turns to Apollo and his eyes have turned white and he says, "I can already taste you." And that's when Apollo, like stabs Harold in the neck with the screwdriver. Harold doesn't expect this. He, keels over, starts bleeding, and it seems like Apollo might be okay. But then we see Beezel, the like monster witch, whatever it is, coming towards Apollo. And Apollo is still a little bit tied up. He's only able to free one hand, so he's trying to untie himself, but not fast enough. Beezel comes and gets him. And during this time, Harold's new wife, his second wife, I guess, is up in the stairs on the attic watching this. So she knows what's going on. She's been helping, but she doesn't get killed. Only Apollo and Harold do. Now we fast forward to November 20th, 2003. It seems like a new person is in the house. This person named Naomi comes. She is a nurse. She is like a home nurse, and she is watching over Mrs. Weems, the wife from that first story, is still alive, but seems like she is essentially in a coma. And so Naomi's over here. She's watching her. She has replaced Charlotte, who was there before, and she's trying to take care of Mrs. Weems. But strange stuff starts happening pretty early on, and all sorts of creepy stuff happened this one night. Like Mrs. Weems starts talking in the middle of the night, even though she's supposed to have a stroke. At one point, Naomi seems to fall asleep and like sees Mrs. Weems looking at her, and she wakes up and she's not. She's walking around the house at night, and she looks outside, and like Mrs. Weems is like looking at her through the window. All sorts of stuff starts happening that makes it seem like maybe Mrs. Weems isn't really in a coma. Now, eventually, Naomi hears some sounds in the basement and she goes down there. Why would you go down there? You just stay where you can be seen, don't go anywhere, turn the lights on, and survive the night. But she goes into the basement and she sees like some cards hanging in the basement, like air fresheners almost. And it's all these old nurses that were there earlier. And so now Naomi seems to know what's going on here. She tries to go upstairs, but then she hears something in the crawl space. And I was like, "Don't go in there. Just leave. Get out of there." But she goes in to check. And when she goes into the crawl space, she finds Charlotte. Charlotte's there. She's screaming. Um, and we also find Beezel in the crawl space feeding on Charlotte. And while this is happening, Naomi is like screaming. She tries to get out, but Mrs. Weems peeks into the crawl space, sees what's happening, and then closes it and locks it. So now Naomi is stuck in the crawl space with Charlotte and with Beezel. It seems like Naomi's time is done. And this story is what I wish maybe had a little bit more escalation. Like Charlotte was working there for like a few days, like I think it was 9 days before she disappeared. And Naomi was there for like a day. It would have been nice to have, maybe a few nights. Like if something happened the first night, something more creepy happened the second night, and then kind of like have it progress until she goes and explores the crawl space. Um, I guess this was the first short that they shot, so maybe this is just always meant to be this kind of a quick story, but it would have been nice just to have this expanded out just a little bit. Now, We move on to February 10th, 2013. This is kind of like the main story, even though it's like towards the end, it's like the last third. But this is I think kind of like the main story in this movie. And so you see a couple exploring this house. You've got Nova and Lucas. I mean, it turns out that Lucas is the son of Mrs. Weems, the one who married Mr. Weems, the like second wife of Mr. Weems. Lucas was her son. And so she married Mr. Weems. She moved here. Lucas never liked Mr. Weems. He never liked like what his mom, I guess, became or how, how this house and this place affected his mom. And so he has kind of like lost contact with her. He and his wife Nova have been living in Paris for a while. But they come back after his mom died to settle her affairs and try to sell this house and then go back to Paris. Now, when they get there, strange stuff starts happening, and especially strange stuff starts happening to Nova, the wife. And it seems like Lucas is on edge ever since he got there. Like Nova is trying to be optimistic about this, trying to be nice. Like she tries to like initiate intimacy with Lucas a couple times, and he always seems to be like just not want to do anything in this house. Not he always seems to be a little bit angry. I actually didn't love his character. His character seemed like unnecessarily angry. I guess he just had bad associations with this house. Didn't like Mr. Weems. Didn't like what this did to his mom. Maybe he just wanted to like get out of here as soon as he could. But he seemed to just be kind of like on edge the entire time. Now, early on, a few weird things start happening. While Nova is taking a shower, she's looking out the window at Lucas, and a bird just like flies right into the window. Common, maybe, but that's not really a great sign. One of your first days, a bird like dies in front of the window. Also, Nova sometimes feels a little bit possessed. Early on, she was like exploring some of Lucas's mom's stuff, and she puts on like one of her nightgowns and is like wearing that for most of the movie. And Lucas doesn't seem to like this. Like, I think he just is like, "Why are you wearing my dead mom's clothes?" And she's like, "It fits. It looks nice." So it seems like Nova is becoming more and more comfortable here and kind of like becoming more and more comfortable with the idea of Mrs. Weems here, and Lucas is just not at all. Now, eventually, one night, Nova wakes up in the middle of the night and hears something. So she has a camera, she starts recording under the bed, and she sees some feet under the bed. And she like, looks up and she doesn't see a body there. She looks back down, the feet are still there. She looks up, there's no body. She looks down, the feet are closer. And then they start moving and they climb onto the bed. And so Nova starts hearing some sounds. She looks up, and when she looks up, she sees herself having sex with her husband, but it's not her, it's like a possessed version of her. It looks over at her and her eyes are like white, and then her husband looks over and his eyes are white. And so there's in some sort of trance, seems like Beezel either is possessing her and she is like having an out-of-body experience, or Beezel has like taken her form and is doing this. One thing we found out from Mr. Weems early on is that Beezel, every 300 years or so, will have a child. And I think that maybe becomes a new Beezel. And so this could be Beezel trying to have its child at this point. So after this kind of horrifying experience, Nova wakes up and maybe thinks it was a dream. She looks over and Luke isn't there. And so she looks around the house, she explores the house, and she goes into the crawl space and hears something crying. So she opens it up and then finds a baby in there. And I was like, oh my God, is this like Beezel's baby? Like, what's going on? And so she's holding the baby in here, like comforting the baby. Lucas comes home. He must have been like at the real estate agent's place. He comes down and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, what's wrong with you?" And he looks down, and this baby is like a dead possum with like flies around it. And so Luke grabs the baby, throws it away. Nova is upset by this. I think she's probably upset because she, thought this was a baby and realized it's like a dead possum. Maybe she thinks that something weird is going on, but she is like crying. I was just like, why don't they just leave this place? Like, get out of this place. Go away. Like, you can sell this remotely. Just get an agent to go and like do the house thing. But they stay. Luke is desperate to sell the house. He tells the real estate agent to like drop the price, whatever it takes, like whatever offer. I just want to get rid of this house. So eventually, Luke discovers the camcorder and is looking through the footage and sees the footage of them having sex. And he goes and like confronts Nova, like, "What is this?" And she's like, "We made love last night. She's going to be so pleased." And Luke's like, "I feel like I would have known if we had done that. Like, what is going on?" He then later finds like some of the old footage, some of the old footage from the first story, and he's going through that and he sees the footage that Mr. Weems recorded when he found the wife and he found his son. And we see, the footage of his dead wife, and then we see the footage of his son. And Luke is like, "Where did you find this stuff?" And Nova's like, "Oh, I found it downstairs." Like, why did you keep this? We don't really ever find that answer. Now, eventually, Luke gets more and more freaked out, and they tells Nova that they need to get out of this house immediately. And Nova's like, "I like it here." Uh, uh, so that is probably why they haven't left. I feel like Luke should have just, I don't know, drag tribe here. It seems like this has been a very bad experience for both of them, but they stay. Eventually, they do get an offer. They do sell the house, and Luke tells Nova that he's arranged to go to Paris tomorrow, and he's arranged for the realtor to finish this sale. So he wants to get out of here now that the house is sold. He wants to get out of here, leave this place, never come back. When Nova hears this, she goes under the table and starts pleasuring Luke, but it doesn't end well for him. It ends in a very painful way. He wakes up from this dream and then he looks over and sees Nova next to him, and she has a knife and starts stabbing him. She starts stabbing Luke. So after this scene, we see Nova going outside in the snow. And this looked like a painful scene to film because she is barefoot walking in the snow in like a slip. And so she's like walking in the snow. She falls down on her knees and it looks like she's walking in the snow. She drops a knife. She falls down on her knees, and it also looks like maybe she's pregnant. So it seems like Nova has this Beezel baby that is supposed to come every 300 years. Now, later, we see the basement and we hear a baby crying, and we see Nova on the ground dead. And it seems like there is also a baby there, and Beezel is there holding the baby. And then I think maybe Beezel eats the baby. I'm not 100% sure, but something bad is happening in that basement, and Nova is now dead. So later, we see a car with a family pull up to this new house, and this lovely new family gets out of this car, enters the house, and it seems like they are probably going to be the next nightmare recipients of Beezel. But that is all we see. That is the end of Beezel. Like I said, I really liked it. I thought it was a really well done indie horror film. I thought it was really kind of like creepy, unsettling, and I liked the way it slowly progressed, especially that last story. I wish that the other stories progressed that way, like slowly, unsettlingly building and building, versus like in the second story where it kind of escalated very quickly. The first story had some nice build up. It didn't have as much as I would like, but I loved the Mr. Williams character. So overall, I thought it was a really great film. I thought it was a really wonderful indie horror movie. So definitely check out Beezel. It comes to select theaters on September 20th, 2024, and digital on September 24th, 2024. And if you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.